All right, we're back for more daily college basketball best bets here on the channel. Today is Saturday, February 15th, and we have got 10 best bets for you here on the channel. Yesterday, a 4-1 day, almost got the sweep, but unfortunately, San Jose State with I wouldn't say an all-time solid job, just a horrendous second half play yesterday against the Nevada Wolfpack. Regardless, 4-1 day, positive day. Let's keep it going today. Of course, we got more than 100 likes, way more than 100 likes. I want to thank you guys for that yesterday. And now, again, we have 10 best bets for this college basketball Saturday. And before we get into the video, folks, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more daily college basketball best bets here on the channel, and make sure to go check out our UFC predictions as well. The UFC card is later today with Jared Cannonier and Gregory Rodriguez in the main event from the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, so make sure to check that video out. That is linked in the description down below. Let's now move on to our 10 best bets for today, and let's start in Massachusetts for a spot between the St. Bonaventure Bonnies and the University of Massachusetts Minutemen. We like UMass at home. I think it's a great spot for UMass. I really think it is, right? Two teams in the A10. We can say two middling teams in the A10, as Massachusetts is 6-6 this year in the conference, and St. Bonaventure is 5-8. Obviously, non-conference wise, St. Bonaventure was a much better team than UMass. The Bonnies, their current record is still 17-9, and that is really boosted because of their non-conference record. They were 14-1 to start the year. They started A10 play 2-0. Their only loss early in the season was to Utah State, who we know is a good team, probably the second best squad right now in the Mountain West Conference. But after that 14-1 start, again, the Bonnies find themselves at 17-9. That's just not going to cut it. They're 3-8 in their last 11 games. The only wins being a home win against Richmond, a home win against Dayton, and a home win against Fordham. This team has not won on the road since their little losing streak really has started. Their last road win was at Fordham on January 4th. So let's look at what their road losses have been. A road loss to the Billikens of St. Louis. That's a team that we faded yesterday. A huge come-from-behind victory and a great ending to that game for the Ramblers of Loyola Chicago, cashing for us yesterday. But a loss for the Bonnies at St. Louis, a loss at Duquesne by 22 points, or 18 points, excuse me, a loss at VCU by 16, a loss at Loyola Chicago by 24, and then their most recent game being a loss at URI, losing up in Rhode Island 68-64. So the Bonnies have just been ice cold. They started the year off hot, but again, this is just completely an ice cold team. They are led by Melvin Council Jr., who's averaging 14 points tonight, Chance Moore averaging 13. Their center, Noel Brown, will give you 12. But the Minutemen surprisingly have been much better recently. I get it, they are coming off a loss in their own right. On Wednesday, they lost at home to Davidson. They lost that game by 9 points. But prior to that, a road win at LaSalle, a close loss at home against St. Louis, a win on the road against Duquesne, a loss on the road against Rhode Island, a win before that against George Washington. I don't know if this is the best trend to pick on, but at least, again, it's kind of gone this way. UMass has traded wins and losses for their last 5 games. Prior to that, they had won 3 in a row, beating Fordham in that triple overtime game in January. They beat LaSalle. They beat George Washington. I don't think this is a bad team. Again, do I think UMass is going to make a push to win the A10 tournament? No, I don't think anybody's expecting that, obviously. But I do think they're the better team, and I think Rashul Diggins is the best player on the court between both of these squads. Diggins is averaging 17.5 points a game. He dropped 34 in the LaSalle victory, 32 in the Duquesne victory, and honestly, that's, Diggins is kind of the difference maker, or whether or not UMass is going to win. You look at their loss to Davidson, he drops 11. The loss against St. Louis, he scores 5 in 36 and 39 minutes respectively. But again, the LaSalle and Duquesne victories, he drops 34 and 32. So I really think this team runs through Diggins. If Diggins is able to have a big night, then Massachusetts should be able to get going. This is a guy in his senior season, started off at UConn. He has been at UMass since his freshman year. You also get Jalen Curry, who's averaging 13. Daniel Rivera averages 13 as well, or 12. But again, this team, it revolves around the Minutemen's point guard, and that is Rashul Diggins. I think UMass should be able to get it right. Again, trading wins and losses back and forth, but I think they have been playing right now like the better team. A home loss to Davidson, it's not great, but I think Davidson right now is playing better ball than the Bonnies are. St. Bonaventure just doesn't look all that great. 3-game losing streak going into this one. The loss at Loyola, the loss at home to George Washington, and again, we've talked about how bad George Washington has been. Unfortunately, we were on the wrong end of that George Washington Bonnies game last week, and then the loss again on the road to URI. And it's not like, again, their leading scorer has been all that great recently. Melvin Council's just been kind of for them. Chance Moore hasn't really shown out either. It's been more of it's been more of Jonah Hinton, and I think Noel Brown had a big night a couple games ago. I'm just not sold on the Bonnies right now. Watching them play the George Washington game and seeing, honestly, the way that UMass has been playing recently as well. I know, again, UMass hasn't been blowing anybody away, but again, the games in Massachusetts, I do think this one does go the way of the Minutemen. We like UMass at home at Amherst, Massachusetts to win this one. -1.5. Again, if we get -1.5, I'd personally just play the money line, -125. Let's roll with it. UMass to win the game outright, and I guess cover the 1.5 at home against the Bonnies. We go on to our second game of the video. Yes, we're getting into some small school ball. Now, there are some big games today, and before we get into this game here, I am skipping Houston and Arizona. I understand it's by far the second biggest game of the day today. We will be talking about the biggest game today, but I'm staying away from Houston and Arizona for the sole reason I couldn't tell you who's going to win that game. I'm excited to watch it. I will be watching Houston and Arizona. If I had to go one way or the other, I'd probably still side with Arizona at home, even with their loss to K-State the other day. I don't trust it, though. Houston's lost one game in the Big 12, and that was by 1 point to Texas Tech, right? I'm staying away from Houston and Arizona. It doesn't mean I'm not excited for it. It's not one of the best bets for today. Anyways, instead of Houston and Arizona, we go to another game at this time slot. Instead of, Houston and Arizona, we now have Jacksonville taking on North Alabama. Okay. I think Jacksonville money line isn't the worst, but I do think their spread is what the play here obviously is. +6.5 here for the Dolphins. North Alabama's good. They really are. Again, this is ASUN basketball now. The ASUN's wide open, right? There is a clear upper half and lower half to this conference. The upper half of the conference being North Alabama, Lipscomb, Jacksonville, Queens University, East Kentucky, and I guess Florida Gulf Coast, who is all right. Them in Jacksonville have been a little bit shaky, I'm not going to lie. But honestly, all these top teams have lost their fair share of games. And then there's the bottom half, right? We're talking about North Florida, Austin, PA, Stetson, Central Arkansas, West Georgia, Bellarmine. I mean, those teams are absolutely horrible, right? North Alabama right now is seeded as the top team in the ASUN, but they are tied at 10-3 with teams like Lipscomb and Jacksonville. And again, this is a game for first place today, basically. Lipscomb's got a game as well. I think they're at home today, if I'm not mistaken. I think they're playing Florida Gulf Coast at home, I think. That's not one of the best bets for today. But I think there's great value on the Dolphins here, right? I'm not telling you they're going to go to North Alabama and win. I'm not, right? But I think they can keep this one close. I get it, they're coming off of some just mid-victories recently. Again, we talk about the two tiers of the ASUN, and the last time we did talk about Jacksonville Dolphins basketball, they didn't come out on the right end of that game against Florida Gulf Coast. And then they proceeded to lose another home game to North Florida, who again is not part of that elite tier. They have won 3 in a row against Stetson, Bellarmine, and Central Arkansas. But again, they're going into this game with momentum, and I don't think they're 6.5 points worse than North Alabama. I don't think they win this game. I think there's value with Jacksonville money line, but definitely, again, the best play here is to take them on the spread at +6.5. Jacksonville's 3 losses in the ASUN this season are Florida Gulf Coast and North Florida that we talked about earlier, and their first game in the conference against Lipscomb, they lost the game by 5 points. They do own a victory over North Alabama earlier this year. It was, of course, in Jacksonville, and the Dolphins ended up winning that one 64-60. And if we're talking about Jacksonville Dolphins basketball, we are talking about Robert McCray V, by far the best player on the Dolphins. If he gets going, this team, it's not even a fact. It's not even a point of if he gets going, this team's better off. He needs to get going for this team to win. I mean, that's how big of a deal Robert McCray is for this basketball team. McCray V averages 16.5 points a game, 4.5 rebounds, 5 assists. They don't have another 10 points per game scorer on this team. Again, it's McCray's squad. Now, we look at the North Alabama Lions, again, the team that did lose the first matchup between these two in Jacksonville. They've won 4 in a row, 2 Central Arkansas, 2 Austin, PA, 2 West Georgia, and also 2 North Florida. Again, none of the elite teams in the ASUN, right? We talk about the tiers. Both of these squads are just coming off victories against these lower level teams. Not to say they haven't beat the better teams before, right? I mean, Jacksonville, we just talked about their victory over North Alabama earlier this year. They have a win over Eastern Kentucky as well. They've beat good teams, and same with North Alabama as well, right? They blew out Eastern Kentucky when they played them. They do have a victory over a pretty solid Lipscomb team as well. Obviously, that is tied in this this 3-way tie for first place right now. But again, North Alabama is coming off of 4 victories over some pretty poor teams. They did lose to Queens, who is not a bad team at all, obviously, as well. They went on the road to play them. That's kind of my point about the ASUN, right? I mean, all these teams I feel like can beat each other on a given night, the top teams, right? I think in this game, though, again, I think North Alabama likely wins, but I don't think they're that many points better than the Dolphins. The Lions are led by Jakari Lane, who averages 16 points a night. Daniel Ortiz will give you 12. Their big is Cornelius Williams, who does post 10 points and 9 boards a game. It's a solid team, I'm not going to lie. But we're banking on the fact that Robert McCray can have a big night, and we just need Jacksonville to keep this game competitive. Again, do they win? Potentially, but the play for us, again, is Jacksonville on the points. I'm going to take plus 6.5 here for the Jacksonville Dolphins. It's a huge game in the ASUN Conference. The winner of this game will be in first place, likely tied with Lipscomb for first. We assume they probably will beat Florida Gulf Coast today. But again, this is another one of these conference tourneys, man. This team, or obviously this conference, every conference gets a bid in the tournament, and it's going to be a fight to get to the NCAA tournament in this conference, and we'll see. If I had to bet, I'd probably say Lipscomb gets it, but I don't know. North Alabama's good, right? Jacksonville's sneaky good. There's some good teams in this conference. East Kentucky's not bad. Queens, low-key's pretty solid. I don't know. In this one, though, we're taking Jacksonville plus 6.5 to cover here on the road at North Alabama. Let's go on to our third game of the day, and we go to a spot between East Texas A&M and Lamar from Commerce, Texas, and we are taking the Cardinals on the road. We like Lamar plus 3.5. Sorry, minus 3.5. They are a pretty sizable favorite being on the road. I just think they're better than East Texas A&M, and I think they're better by a pretty far margin. I think Lamar should be a way bigger favorite, okay? I think they should be a 6.5 point favorite. East Texas A&M, and we're not done with the Southland Conference today. We're gonna have another game with them later. But East Texas A&M's a 1-13 team in the conference. They are 3-22 this season, and they're only 3.5 point dogs in this game. Their only win in conference play is a win over Northwestern State, which isn't a bad win. They beat Northwestern State by 22 points, and that's a squad that's 8-6 this year in the Southland Conference. But again, East Texas A&M is a 1-13 team in the Southland. Since that Northwestern State victory, they lose to Texas A&M Corpus Christi, they lose to Nicholls, and they lose to McNeese, who does feel like the best team in the conference still. Obviously, they're 13-1, right? The Lions have 3 wins all year long. A win over probably still the best team in the SWAC, the Southern Jaguars. A win over Albany Christian by 1 point, and again, the blowout victory against Northwestern State. Lamar's by far the better basketball team. They've been all year long. Right? This team has now won 6 out their last 7 victories over Nicholls on the road. Their first victory over East Texas A&M. I get it, close game. They only won it by 3, but I think they should be fine here. I really think the second time around, I think Lamar is able to beat them by even more. A win over Northwestern State after that, a win on the road at SF Austin, a loss to Southeastern Louisiana, who is a good basketball team, a win over UT Rio Grande Valley by 2 points, and they win over Texas A&M Corpus Christi. I get they're on the road, but again, I think honestly, like the second time around for Lamar against East Texas A&M should benefit them. They've already seen this team before, and sure, they had a competitive game against the Lions. But the Lions really haven't been close in any game other than their win since that first game against Lamar. 7-point loss to SF Austin, 12-point loss to Texas A&M Corpus Christi, a 16-point loss to Nicholls, and a 16-point loss to McNeese. I think Lamar should be okay here. East Texas A&M is led by Scooter Williams. He's their guard who averages 12 points a game. Other than that, they really don't have another great scorer on this team. Kalik Abdul-Mateen isn't bad. He averages 8.5 points. Other than that, they don't have another player who averages more than 7 points a game. Lamar, the Cardinals are just the better basketball team. You get 3 really good scorers, really 4 good scorers. Alexis Marlejos is by far their best guy. He averages 15 points a game. Deshaun Jackson averages 12. Andrew Holyfield averages 10.5, and Adam Hamilton averages 10. It's a good team. It's an all-around better team. Lamar is 15-10 this season. They've been the better team in the Southland Conference all year long, and I think they should be able to get East Texas A&M. Again, at some point in the season, and this is honestly where East Texas A&M is at this point, you just develop a losing culture. It's not like you've been shut out, in the Southland Conference. You've won a game. So you're not fighting to get that one game and trying to, again, muster up all the strength to just win one. They've already done that. They got their pity win over Northwestern State. Now it's just time for them to take a bludgeoning, right? I don't know, personally. Does the Southland Conference take every single team? I don't know. Because they still could potentially be playing for something. But even if they do, again, say the South. I'm not too familiar with the Southland Conference. I don't know if their conference tournament. I don't know if they're going to take all these teams for the conference tourney. Regardless if they are or not, either this team's done or they're just waiting for the conference tourney because they know they're going to be the last seed. Well, actually, the Privateers of New Orleans are pretty bad too. A team that Lamar did lose to this season at home. They'll be fine. They've already beat Texas A&M. They beat them again only by 3 the first time around. This time they should be able to improve on that, and they should be able to cover the spread in this one. I know they didn't the first time around. It's an overtime spot. Marmolejo's dropped 24. I think this team, again, they should have a better shooting night the second time around against Texas A&M, and I think they'll be all right. So give me Lamar on the road, -3.5. You can take the money line as well, but I mean, it's -175. Just take the points. Lamar on the road, -3.5 against this lowly and horrible East Texas A&M Lions team. So give me Lamar. Let's go into our fourth game of the video, and we move to the biggest game of the day. I don't think it's the Iron Bowl in basketball, but if you call it the Iron Bowl, you can. It's number 1 versus number 2, right? And I think for good reason, right? I know Duke's good, right? There are some other teams, obviously, that are solid this year, but this is 1 versus 2, and it feels like it. Alabama and Auburn. I'm not going to jump off Auburn right away. I'm not. I know they lost at home to Florida last weekend. It was a bad loss. It's the worst game Auburn has played all year long. I think they bounce back here. I really think they do. And it's not like they're coming into this game straight off a loss. They did go to Vandy and win, right? So it's not like this team is completely deflated, obviously, after the Florida loss at home. They've been able to win a game since. They went to Vanderbilt and won, and I think they should be able to get back here. Alabama's been great. Don't get me wrong. Both these teams 10-1 in the SEC this season. Auburn 22-2. Alabama 21-3. Again, we talk about Auburn's 2 losses being Duke and Florida. Bama's losses, Oregon, Purdue, and Ole Miss. There is a fraudulent team in that 3, and that is the Oregon Ducks. A team that I don't want to watch in the NCAA tournament. I hope they don't get there. I'm serious. I hope they don't get in. I don't want to watch Oregon. They piss me off. Anyways, they can't score. They're so annoying. Anyways, Bama's been real good, right? The Ole Miss loss at home is a little bit confusing, right? They lose that game by 10, and we're going to talk about the Rebels a little bit more later in the video. They've got a big matchup as well. Big day today all around the SEC. We're not done with the SEC. We've got a lot of them today. But that was Bama's last loss, right? January 14th, they lose by 10 points at home to the Rebels. Ole Miss gets them, and Bama hasn't looked back since. They've won every single game they've played since that game against Ole Miss. A win on the road at Kentucky by 5 points. A win against Vanderbilt. A win against LSU, who I know is bad, but still. A win at Mississippi State. A win against Georgia. A win at Arkansas. And lastly, on Tuesday, a win in Austin, Texas against the Texas Longhorns. And Alabama has one of the best offenses in the country. They are one of the high scoring offenses in the country as well. They put up points. And not to say Auburn does it as well, but that's going to be an adjustment again. We will see how Auburn deals with this high scoring attack. Alabama feels like almost every game they're putting up 90 plus, and that can be credited to the star players in this team, right? They've got a bunch of them, but it all starts with Mark Sears. Sears has been great all season long. He averages 18 points a game. Grant Nelson averages 13. Aiden Holloway with 12. Fill-ins averaging 10 points a game as well this season. Latrell Wright-Sell's been out, I believe, since December. I think he went out in December. But still, Bama's been fine. And again, it all starts with Mark Sears, and Grant Nelson has been a tremendous big for them this season as well. The thing with Auburn, though, I mean, I still think this is the best team in the country. I know, again, they're coming off a loss, or like 2 games ago. They did, again, beat Vandy. I still think they're the best team in the country. I didn't expect them to go into the NCAA tournament with only 1 loss, and that 1 loss being to Duke on the road. I thought they were going to, lose one eventually. And I know, again, Auburn's in for a tough stretch now, right? They've been playing good teams, but this is a pretty brutal stretch to end the year. You look at the Bama game, obviously, tonight. Arkansas, Georgia, both in Auburn. I expect them to win those games, but then they close out the season right now with 4 ranked teams: Ole Miss, at Kentucky, at A&M, and they close the season at home against Alabama, right? That's a tough schedule to close the year for Auburn, but I think as long as they go into the tournament, well, okay, Auburn's going to be a 1 seed regardless. Unless they completely collapse, they're going to be a 1 seed, but as long as they can go into the tournament with, I'd say, 3 losses, they should be perfectly fine. 4 losses even, I'd still be okay with this Auburn team. I just don't think they get loss number 3 right here. I really don't think they do. I think that might come towards the end of the season. But I think Auburn, again, and obviously, this is the Alabama matchup. Both these teams are going to be more than fired up to win this basketball game. But I do think Auburn is slightly better. I think they have a point to prove. Again, because they'll lose the number 1 spot, obviously, if they don't win this game. Bama will be number 1 if they beat Auburn, obviously, right? Both teams will have, 3 losses then. Bama, again, will have them head-to-head. Alabama will be 1. Auburn will likely be 2. I don't think they jump Duke over them. I highly doubt it. Since Duke, again, lost last week to Clemson, I highly doubt Duke. Yeah, it'll still probably be Duke at 3. But still, Auburn's good. Johni Broome, again, is a great player, averages 18 and 11 this season. They have supporting pieces around Broome with Chad Baker-Mazara, Todd Pettiford, Miles Kelly, Denver Jones. There are guys, Chaney Johnson as well. It's a really solid core that the Auburn Tigers have. And again, like I said when I made this prediction, I'm not jumping off Auburn because they lose one game, okay? We haven't even talked about the Florida Gators. Again, they're lost. We haven't talked about the Gators specifically. Florida's good. Florida is good. And again, the SEC is a dogfight. All these top teams in the SEC are tremendous. Auburn, Bama, Florida. I know Tennessee's been, losing games recently, but Tennessee's still solid. Ole Miss, obviously. A&M's been there this year. Mizzou, right? I mean, there are good teams in the SEC. They got to be the conference that's getting the most bids into the tournament this season. It is hard to win here. Auburn losing one game at home to Florida doesn't completely turn me away from them for the rest of the season. If I had to make a pick right now for a team that's winning the tourney, I still think it's the Auburn Tigers. But again, this is why this game is being played. It's a huge prove-it spot for the Crimson Tide, but I do think Auburn gets the best of them. I think they go to Tuscaloosa, and I do think Johni Broome, Chad Baker-Mazara, and the guys go into Alabama and win. By far the game of the day. I expect Sears and Nelson to play out their mind as well. I expect it to be a high-scoring affair, but in the end, I think Auburn gets the stops when needed, and I think the Auburn Tigers go on the road, shut down that crowd, and the Tigers hold their place as the number one team in the country. Give me Auburn in Tuscaloosa to walk out with the win. We get them at plus money too, by the way. We get plus 115 for Auburn, so sign me up. When we get the best team in the country at plus money, we take it. Let's move on to our next game. I believe our fifth of the video, we move to the Southland Conference once more. So again, I told you we're not done with the Southland, and here we are again. We talked about Southeastern Louisiana last week, obviously, in their weekend game against Incarnate Word. They went on the road and beat Incarnate Word by 5 points. Since then, they had a home game against Houston Christian. They won that one, and we're back picking Southeastern Louisiana. Southeastern Louisiana has now worked their way probably to the second best team in the Southland Conference. They're 10-4 in the conference, tied with Lamar for second place in the conference, obviously behind that McNeese Cowboys team, which is by far the best in the conference and the team that we expect to easily win it. Even though, again, there are good teams in the Southland, I'm telling you, there are just levels to this with how good McNeese is, right? Here comes Nicholls, right? Good team, they are. A team that has, they did go through their rough stretches, but they are coming off a loss to Northwestern State. Now, if you remember, and again, college basketball and just sports in general doesn't always go this way, but hear me out. Northwestern State did lose to Texas A&M, and Nicholls, their last game, did lose at home to Northwestern State. But again, that doesn't mean anything. Nicholls does hold the only win over McNeese in the Southland Conference this season. When McNeese came to Nicholls beat them 71-63. That was part of their big winning streak. That also included UT Rio Grande Valley, again McNeese, Houston Christian, and East Texas A&M. That loss though to Northwestern State isn't great. It's not a great loss to be going into this one. It's an end of a homestand. They had 4 straight games at home. They lose the last one, and now you got to go on the road to Southeastern Louisiana, a team that's playing hot right now. They are playing great basketball. Their last loss came to Houston Christian, but what happened? They just rebounded and won that game. This team they've won 10 out their last 11, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, this team is on fire. They are on fire right now. They've won 10 out their last 11 games. They started Southland play 0-3. They're now 10-4, and they've won 4 in a row now. New Orleans, Lamar, Incarnate Word on the road, Houston Christian on the road. Now they get to return home against Nicholls. It's a great spot here for Southeastern Louisiana. It just is. It is a tremendous spot for this team. And they've been getting great games recently out of their guard in Jakevion Buckley. This is a guy who puts up about 20 points a game as of late. He's their 6'1" point guard. Started the year off pretty cold. Not big scoring nights for him, but he has really turned it up recently. Last 2 games, 25 plus. He's been playing big minutes all year long, but now the shots are just falling for him. And again, it's not, I would say not the shots. It's really just the drives to the basket, and Buckley's getting to the free throw line more effectively. That is how Southeastern Louisiana plays. We talked about it a little bit last week, and it's more of the same. This team's really not going to shoot threes. They're a horrible three-point shooting team. They were not good from beyond the arc in the Lamar game, the Houston Christian game that they just won. They went 2 for 13 from beyond the arc. And again, their best player right now, Jakevion Buckley, doesn't really shoot. Sam Hines, who's been a really good player for them all season long, can't really shoot it. They don't really have a good three-point shooter. I'll just be honest. They don't. So this team will beat you inside, and they're going to beat you by getting to the line as well. Right? 26 free throw attempts against Houston Christian. That's what wins them games. They get you into foul trouble, and they grind you out, and they win. And they're able to do this on the road, too. That's how they won their last 2 games. Another 26 free throw attempts in the Incarnate Word game. They go 3 for 12 from the three-point line in that Incarnate Word game, with Cam Burton being the only guy to sink any threes. He went 3 for 8. The rest of the team goes 0 for 4. Again, it's all about Ja'Cavion Buckley's ability to score and Sam Hines as well. Those are the 2 scorers on this team, right? When they played Incarnate Word, Sam Hines had 18, Ja'Cavion Buckley had 27, Burton off the bench had his 3 threes, and then no one else on the team had more than 5 points. It's just how it works for them. They rely on a couple scores, and they get to the free throw line, and they will burn you out, and they will force you to foul them. That's how they're playing, and it's been working. I think we keep riding this wave of momentum here for the Southeastern Louisiana team. I don't think Nicholls is bad, led by Byron Ireland, who's averaging 12.5, and Robert Brown, who's averaging 12 as well. Jamal West Jr. averages 11, but right now, the better basketball team, and they're playing the way that they want to win games. Again, it might not be the most flashy style. Again, it might be what some people deem to be what's wrong with basketball right now, but it works. They drive, they are relentless into getting into the hoop. They will get your bigs in foul trouble, and they will be the better team at the end of the basketball game. So right now, until someone finds a way to stop it, I'm taking Southeastern Louisiana. Again, winners of 10 out their last 11. I don't think at home they lose to Nicholls. I get it. Nicholls is a good team, but I do think Southeastern Louisiana gets them. Give me the Lions at home to continue their winning ways. They are the favorites in this one. They're the dogs in this one. Minus 105 for Southeastern Louisiana. Sign me up. Plus 1.5, whatever. Just take the money line. Give me the Lions at home as dogs to beat Nicholls. This line might flip as of midnight of early Saturday morning. Southeastern Louisiana is a dog. I don't know. I'd expect that line to move. Regardless, give me Southeastern Louisiana on the money line to beat Nicholls. We go on to our 6th game of the video, and we go back to the Southeastern Conference. It's the Battle of Mississippi. So we talked about the 2 best teams in the state of Alabama, and now we talk about the 2 best teams in the state of Mississippi. I'm sorry to the Mississippi State Delta Devils, Valley State Delta Devils. They don't really cut it when we talk about these 2 squads. This is a good game. Ole Miss and Mississippi State, it was a good game the first 2 times these teams played. I'll argue Ole Miss has been a much better team, though, since that first encounter. They have. I know they lost back-to-back right after that. They lose to A&M, they lose to Mizzou. They beat Texas, lose to Auburn, and now they're on a 3-game winning streak. Beating Kentucky at home, a tremendous come from behind victory against Louisiana State. I thought that game was over. Ole Miss comes back, and they find a way to win. They didn't cover, but it's okay. They found a way to win. They're not, again, good teams win, great teams cover. So, again, Ole Miss, a good team. Great, And we'll get to Mississippi State. We've picked against the Bulldogs so many times, and we're going to continue to do it. Again, I swear to you, I don't hate Josh Hubbard. I just don't think it's a winning team. I'm going to be honest with you. I like Josh Hubbard. I think he's a good player, but he's very off and on. Regardless, back-to-back victories for the Rebels on the road. They go to Baton Rouge and win. They go to South Carolina and beat the Gamecocks by 4 points, 72-68. Now they return home, and here we go. They return home to Oxford, and they get their rivals. So we can throw all that away. We really can't. Yes, they're playing with more momentum, but all that matters in this game is that they take care of Mississippi State. I think they do it. Guys, Ole Miss played one of their worst games all year, and that overtime loss to Mississippi State. Sure, that was kind of a product. The game being in overtime was somewhat of a product of Mississippi State keeping Ole Miss in the game. Horrible fouls at times in regards, taking horrible shots, turning the ball over. But Ole Miss played a bad game in that one, and they almost took it off Mississippi State. Now, this time around, the game's in Oxford, and I think Ole Miss is playing better. I'm not sold on Mississippi State. I haven't been sold on Mississippi State all year long. Ole Miss, 8-4 in the SEC. Mississippi State now under 500. They're 5-6 in the Southeastern Conference. I'm not sold. What have they done since the Ole Miss win? They lose at Tennessee. They go to South Carolina and beat Colin Murray Boyles and the Gamecocks. They lose to Alabama. They lose to Mizzou. At home, they get blown out by 27 points. They beat Georgia on the road by 1 point. And then they lose to Florida by 13. Again, good squads. Josh Hubbard, good player at times. And here's the thing with Josh Hubbard. They need him to perform, obviously, because Hubbard is what's keeping this team together. And most of the time, Josh Hubbard does shoot the ball fairly well. He just takes a lot of attempts. Like, Hubbard's going to score. And again, when he's at his best, look at the Alabama game, right? Josh Hubbard goes 14 for 28 from the field. Yeah, he's taken 28 shots in a game, 6 for 15 from beyond the arc, 38 points. That'll play. But then he'll have games like he did against Georgia, right? I mean, actually, the Georgia game wasn't horrible for him. I mean, he went 2 for 8 from beyond the arc, but 7 for 14 from the field, 16 points. Better example is, oh God, was the game? Yeah, the Auburn game, right? Hubbard goes 2 for 10 from the 3-point line. He shoots 11 free throws, so he finishes with 17 points. But like games like that for Josh Hubbard are the most impressive. But he's been a lot better recently, right? Which is great. The thing is, Hubbard's been better, but they've still been losing. It's just because, again, they're not getting production anywhere other than their sophomore guard, who is undersized. Hubbard's 5'11", but they haven't been getting any production anywhere else other than Josh Hubbard. They simply haven't. I mean, Keyshawn Murphy's averaging 12, Claudell Harris is averaging 10, but those aren't guys you can rely on, really. Murphy's a good big, I'll give him that, but scoring-wise, man, it is just Josh Hubbard. You look at the Bulldogs game log, and Hubbard's led their team in scoring pretty much every single game they've played in SEC play, regardless of if he has a bad game or not. Again, that's how much the Bulldogs rely on him to be great. It's a lot. It's a lot for Josh Hubbard, and I think Ole Miss is the all-around better team. I'm not going to sit here and try to argue that Sean Padula is a better player than Josh Hubbard, but I think Padula has got the better supporting cast, you know, with Jalen Murray. Dre Davis hasn't been bad at points. Jamin Brakefield, obviously. Matthew Morrell is on and on, but he will have games like he did against Kentucky, scoring 24 points, right? I just think the supporting cast, Malik Dia at times can be really good as well for the Rebels. I just think the supporting cast around Sean Padula, obviously, again, the Ole Miss's star is better than what Hubbard has. Again, I'm not comparing Padula and Hubbard, but that's just kind of how both these teams function. Again, Ole Miss definitely not as reliant on Padula than Mississippi State is with Hubbard. But we look at the odds for this game, right? Ole Miss is the favorite this time around. They are a 4.5-point favorite at home, minus 200. I'm okay with the spread here. I do think they cover it. I think they will just kind of get away from Mississippi State in this game. Just watching these teams recently, Ole Miss is playing like the much better squad. They are. And again, records do dictate that as well. Again, you look at where Ole Miss is in the SEC standings compared to where the Bulldogs are. That, again, a point can be made with that as well. But just watching these teams and just with the straight eye test, yes, Ole Miss is playing like the way better basketball team, and I expect them to beat Mississippi State in this one. I expect them to cover this line as well. Again, both these teams are turning teams, obviously. The Bulldogs 22 in the country, 22nd in the country, Ole Miss 19th in the country. Again, next time those rankings come out, I expect Ole Miss to definitely be a lot higher, and I expect Mississippi State to be unranked. But again, the Bulldogs will likely be in the tourney this season. It would take a monumental collapse. Would it take a monumental collapse? No, it's just because the SEC is getting so many teams in, they will get in. But then they got a home game against A&M. They go to Oklahoma, to Bama. They do finish out with LSU, Texas, and Arkansas. But man, the SEC, we keep on saying it. It's a dogfight. It's such a tough conference to win in. It is. Just another day in the SEC. Give me the Ole Miss Rebels to win at home and cover the 4.5 against their in-state rivals. We like the Rebels over the Bulldogs here in Mississippi. Let's go to our 7th game of the day. 7th, I think it is. Staying in the SEC. Kentucky and Texas. I like Kentucky. I'm not sold on Texas. I'm not. Same time last week, we picked against Texas in their spot against Vanderbilt. That game was in Tennessee. This time we are going to the Moody Center in Austin, Texas, and yes, we are taking the Kentucky Wildcats. I'm not sold on Texas. I'm not. We talked about how great the SEC is. I think the cutoff is Texas. I think so. I mean, obviously, again, Arkansas and Georgia are not elites either, but I'm not expecting big things out of them, obviously, for the rest of the season. I'm not sold on Texas. They haven't been that great. They've lost 3 in a row. They lose to Arkansas at home, lose to Vandy on the road. They welcome Bama in, and the Crimson Tide beat them by 23 points. Trey Johnson's a baller. I'll give you that. Trey Johnson can play. Trey Johnson's led this team in points every single game since mid-January. That's how good this guy is. He averages essentially 20 a night. That's kind of all he does, but it's all he needs to do, obviously, because if the Longhorns are going to win, they need Trey Johnson to succeed. Arthur Kaluma averages 13. Jordan Pope averages 11. Those are good players, but again, the focus and everything is on Trey Johnson for the Longhorns. The Kentucky Wildcats have been a little shaky, right? They're now 6-5 in the SEC. They did lose 4 out of 5 at one point, but you look at the teams they're losing to. Bama, Vandy, they beat Tennessee on the road. Calipari comes back to Kentucky, to Lexington. He beats Kentucky with his new team, Arkansas. Weird spot, but it is what it is. Again, the circumstances around that game are different. Kentucky goes to Oxford, they lose to Ole Miss. Back-to-back victories, South Carolina, and they beat Tennessee again. So Kentucky just has Tennessee's number this season. They go to Knoxville and win. They beat them the second time around at the Rupp Arena. Now they got to go to Texas. I think they should be okay here. I think they should. I'm not sold on Texas at all. Otega-Oweh has been playing all right. Jackson Robinson as well. Kobe Brea. It's not a team that's going to blow you away. Again, Oweh's their best guy. Amari Williams is going to be all over the glass and should be down low in this one. It's really just dependent on how they shut down Trey Johnson. Because again, you're not going to completely shut down Johnson, but you can contain him. That's why I'm a little surprised Kentucky's a dog in this game. They're plus 3.5 point dogs on the road here against this Texas team that has struggled a lot. I don't see it. I really don't. If you want to, again, play conservatively, go with the plus 3.5 for the Kentucky, for the Wildcats. At the same time, I don't mind the money line, plus 135. I really don't. Again, Texas have been losers 3 out of the last 3 times. Prior to that, they go to Louisiana State and win. They lose to Ole Miss prior to that. They're a 4-8 team in the conference, taking on Kentucky, who is much better than them, a ranked team. Kentucky is 15th in the country. Again, I know they just have Tennessee's number, but at the same time, they have beat the Volunteers twice this season. Do you think Texas can beat Tennessee? They got close, but right now, again, I get it. Tennessee has not been playing their hottest ball right now. I don't think Texas would come close to beating Tennessee right now, especially if they went to Rocky Top. No, I don't think they're going to Knoxville and winning that game. I think Kentucky's still the better basketball team. Again, Otega-Oweh hasn't been playing tremendously, but he's been playing good. He's been playing all right. I mean, hell, he leads Kentucky in scoring their last game against Tennessee with 13. Bottom line, it comes down to Trey Johnson and how Kentucky shuts him down. I think they're going to be okay. I like the Wildcats here on the road. Watching Texas against Vandy, again, they were in that game and winning that game. They were winning it in the second half, but fouls started to pile up. Vandy started to get that shot falling. And Trey Johnson, again, didn't have his biggest night. Johnson with only 15 points against Vanderbilt, but in the end, that's still leading the Longhorns in scoring. They really struggle to find big production outside of Trey Johnson, where, again, I get it. Kentucky, Otega-Oweh is their best guy. I don't think they're obviously not as dependent on him, though. They have other guys who can score, and I think Kentucky should be fine. So, hey, I love the plus money here. I don't care they're going on the road. I still like Kentucky here, plus 3.5. If they're able to go to Knoxville and win, they should be able to go to Austin and to Texas and win. Give me the Kentucky Wildcats on the road to beat the Texas Longhorns. We go on now to our 8th game of the video. I think I'm counting right. We go to the Big 12. Our only stop here in the Big 12 today, K-State on the road against Brigham Young. We're continuing the trend of underdogs. Give me Kansas State plus 6.5 on the road and with the money line as well here against Brigham Young. I get it, going to Provo's tough. It is. That's a tough place to play. I think Kansas State right now is playing like the better team than BYU. You can look record-wise and say, oh, they're both 7-6 this season. Kansas State has the worst overall record. They're 13-11 this season, while Brigham Young is 16-8. But it's all about what you've done recently. And obviously, Kansas State might be the hottest team in all the country right now. I mean, again, just momentum-wise, obviously. I don't think they could beat everyone in the country right now. But they've won 6 in a row. They were 1-6 at one point in the Big 12. They're now 7-6. A win against West Virginia. When the Mountaineers were ranked, they beat West Virginia. They blow out Oklahoma State at Kansas. They go to Iowa State, and not just win, they beat the Cyclones by 19. That's when Iowa State was the third highest ranked team in the country. They go to ASU and find a way to win. They beat Arizona State by 1 point. And then back-to-back victories at home against 2 ranked squads. I get it. Kansas has been just really mid recently. But then a win over Arizona is huge. We're talking, again, early in the video today about how we think Arizona probably can beat Houston. Again, that's not a best bet. That's just my personal opinion on that game. I'm not going to bet on it. I'm just going to watch. But Kansas State just beat Arizona. Again, Arizona comes to them, but K-State finds a way to win. And I'm not going to say, again, I don't think they are a good team at home, but it's not like they can't go on the road and win. Hell, they went to Iowa State and won. And now, again, sure, I am picking them to win, but the main play here is the points. We just need them to not lose by more than 6 in Provo against a BYU team that has lost 2 out of their last 3. We just saw Arizona come in here and win. Who's to say K-State can't do the same thing, right? But again, we just need them to cover. Hey, when Baylor came to BYU, who, again, I would say right now Baylor's playing at the same level as Kansas State is right now, and BYU to that same extent. But again, Baylor's a very comparable team, I think, personally, to these two right now. Baylor didn't beat BYU, but they only lost by 4. That covers, right? The other games that BYU's had at home, I mean, Cincinnati's god-awful. Just they are. Cincinnati's bad. Colorado's bad. Arizona State's bad. We disregard that. A home loss for BYU to Texas Tech. I get it. Texas Tech might be on another level. They probably are than BYU, but still Texas Tech comes into Provo and beats them. I think we're okay here with K-State. This team is on a run. They are playing great basketball right now. They are completely on fire. For Brigham Young, again, Richie Sanders leads them in points, obviously. He's just been okay recently. They haven't been playing all that well. They haven't. They've just been getting outscored, and they haven't really found any production anywhere. They haven't found one, consistent score, and obviously that changes next season with BYU when AJ comes into play, obviously. But I mean, 66 points and a loss on the road to Cincinnati? I pick against Cincinnati a lot, and I get it. Again, the Bearcats are going to have their day, obviously. They're going to have their days, and they'll win. I know they're coming off 3 straight wins at UCF against BYU and against Utah, but come on. You put up less of a fight against Cincinnati than UCF and Utah. I think Cincinnati's bad. I get it. They won 3 in a row, but they're still horrible. They are going to be a one and done in the Big 12 tournament this season. They don't have a number 1. They don't. Is it Jizzle James? Is it Seamas? Is it Skillings? Who knows? But I think putting up 66 points against Cincinnati is absolutely atrocious. I don't trust BYU at all here. K-State's been playing like the better basketball team, and we don't even need them to win. You can take the money line. I don't mind it, but plus 6.5 feels like the great play here for the Kansas State Wildcats, the team playing with all the momentum right now. They're playing with confidence. I think they go into Cincinnati, and I think they they're not playing. They would go to Cincinnati and win right now. I think they go to BYU and win that game. Cincinnati and K-State played later in the year in Ohio. But again, they beat Cincinnati, and I think they do go into BYU and cover the 6.5 points. Again, I'd expect this line to move as well. We'll see. But right now, plus 6.5 for the Kansas State Wildcats. We are going to take them to cover on the road in Brigham Young, Utah against the BYU Cougars. Let's go on to our ninth. Ninth. I think it's our 9th. Yes, it is our 9th. We go to our 9th game of the day, and let's move now to Liberty on the road in El Paso, Texas, at the Don Haskins Center. Give me the Liberty Flames. All right, CUSA basketball is weird. Okay, and it's just that can be described by Jacksonville State, the best team in the CUSA record-wise. They're not winning the CUSA tournament. It's going to be the Flames. But anyways, the CUSA being weird can be described as shortly as Jacksonville State is the best team in the conference going to Sam Houston. They are underdogs at Sam Houston, and somehow they lose. I'm sorry, the other day we fell into the trap. Okay, we did. If Vegas set the trap, we were like, we'll just take it. That's why Vegas does what they do. Okay, that's why. Anyways, Liberty's going to UTEP and winning. All right, they will beat those Miners. We don't like the Miners. We don't. Right? Liberty's won 3 in a row. They beat La Tech, who is not a bad team. They are favored to beat Jacksonville State today. And the CUSA is like the CAA to the extent that it's really hard to win on the road in this conference. But if there is a team that's going to do it, I do think it's Liberty. Now, Liberty started really cold in CUSA play this year. They start off losing a home game to WKU, to the Hilltoppers, the team that did win the CUSA last season. They lose to La Tech on the road. They lost the initial game to UTEP by 2 points over in Virginia. But ever since that UTEP loss, the Flames have been so much better. They beat New Mexico State. They go to FIU and win. I get the Panthers aren't that great, but they go to Miami and win that game. They go to Kennesaw and win. They lose a road game to Jacksonville State. Again, I expect Liberty to get them the second time around when they play in the regular season this year, and I expect Liberty to get Jacksonville State if they do match up in this USA tournament as well. And then 3 straight wins, right? They get their win back against La Tech. They beat Sam Houston, something Jacksonville State can't do, and they beat New Mexico State on the road. All right, and Las Cruces, I think that's where New Mexico State is. Yeah, gotta be, because New Mexico's in Albuquerque, the Lobos. Anyways, UTEP's not bad. Right, the Miners haven't been playing all that bad at basketball. They've split their last 4 losses at WKU and at Middle Tennessee. They go to Las Cruces and beat the Aggies, and then they win at home against FIU. I just don't think they're on the same level. I get it. UTEP's the number 3 team in the conference right now. Liberty is number 2. I just think Liberty's better right now. Again, I think Liberty went through their really rough stretch to start the year, obviously, in the CUSA. But they're playing much better basketball now than they were back then. They're playing much better defense. They haven't really found it scoring wise. I mean, it is Kane Metheny and it is Talon Peter who are their best scorers with 13. They're both scoring 13 respectively. And Zach Cleveland's been good as well. I mean, he's their big who averages 11 points and 7 boards a game. For the Miners, they're led by Otis Frazier III. He averages 14.5 points a game. Corey Camper averages 11. Devon Barnes, averages 10. Ahmad Bynum averages 10 points as well a game. I just think Liberty's the better scoring team. I've seen this team, again, compared to UTEP, I think they're the better scoring team, and I think they are able to shut them down defensively. The CUSA is not one of these high-scoring conferences. They're not. You're going to usually see these final scores. I mean, some of these games, it's first to like 75 will usually win it. If you get a 75 points some of the time in the CUSA, you're probably going to win. And I get it. Going on the road in this conference is difficult. We've seen, again, how that was apparent when the Gamecocks of Jacksonville State went to Sam Houston, who were the last-place team in the conference, and lose. I get that. But if there's a team that's going to overcome that, it's going to be Liberty. This is a team who I think travels fairly well. At least recently they have been. The Kennesaw win on the road, FIU win on the road, New Mexico State win on the road. I get it; those aren't the best teams, but I think they should be okay in this spot. I like Liberty, I like Metheny, and I like Peter and Porter as well. Two guys who've been scoring fairly effectively for this team. Colin Porter isn't obviously as good as Talon Peter, but still, I think the Flames are okay here on the road against UTEP. -1.5. You can take the money line at -125. Yeah, just take the money line at that point. Spread and money line both work here for the Flames. Give me the Flames go on the road to beat the UTEP Miners and really establish themselves again as the best team, I think, personally, in the CUSA. They will get their get back against Jacksonville State later in the year. And I do think Liberty, again, are the favorites to still lead the CUSA, obviously, into the big dance. So give me Liberty as we go on to our final game of the video, and we go to the Big West. It is the late night game starting at 8:59 on the West Coast, 11:59 p.m. on the East Coast. We get the UC Irvine Anteaters going on the road to Honolulu, Hawaii to take on the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. Now, I am not as confident anymore about UCI in the tournament. Not in this game. I'm confident with them in this game. But I'm not as hot on UCI as I was earlier in the year. And it's been a combination of them not beating the crap out of teams that they should, and obviously that game against UC San Diego. All right, they played it in Irvine. UCSD comes in there and beats them. Now, personally, would I love to see a two-bid Big West? 100%. I'd love to see both those teams in the tourney. Let's just be honest, though, they're not putting both UCI and UC San Diego in the tournament. Even if both those teams finish the season at what? 27-4? I think 27-4? Oh. Yeah. No, 28-4. Even if they're both 28-4, I still don't think both of them are getting in the tourney, right? One of them is going to get relegated to either the NIT or isn't like Fox doing something called the Crown Invitational this year? Probably the NIT, right? Because I think the Crown Invitational is for like all the big schools who didn't get in, right? To try because they're like the big schools are all forcing their way, we're just all declining the NIT, like Indiana. So I can't wait to see the Hoosiers in the Crown tourney this year. Shout out to UCLA going to Bloomington and winning yesterday. Anyways, so I've been off on Irvine. I have, right? We picked them to beat UCSD, didn't work, didn't happen, obviously, and it was a little bit of a questionable pick. I was relying on, all right, Irvine's ability that they beat them earlier in the season. I was expecting, okay, they can do it again. If they can go to San Diego and beat them, they can beat UCSD when they come to Irvine. They didn't, right? They were in a dogfight the other night. They win. They find a way to beat UCSB on Thursday night. They do. They win the game by 2 points. And right away, they have to turn around and go to Hawaii. They had to play a late night game where they barely get out of it. It was a game-winning shot by Devin Tillis. It was a tremendous pass. It was a great inbound pass, at first. Devin Tillis catches it with 0.7 seconds, shoots it, falling back. He falls down. He doesn't really get a shot in it. It's a tip-in. It's a tip-in from 15, maybe like 15 out. He finds a way to bank it in, and UCI wins the game. They survive against UC Santa Barbara, who's a good team, but not on the level, again, of Irvine, San Diego, and then I'd say UC Riverside. That cesspool is probably the third best team in the conference. CSUN actually has been playing good ball recently, but I don't think they're as good as the top three. We'll see CSUN Riverside later, I think, this year, right? Yeah, because Northridge lost to that cesspool earlier this season in Domingo Hills. Is that where they play? No, they don't play. I don't know where CSUN is. Regardless, I think the Anteaters are okay here. I know. It feels like kind of a trap, too. They're going on the road to Hawaii after they just played on Thursday night. This is where Hawaii's going to get teams. But Hawaii's just been playing really bad ball. They have. Guys, they barely got by the beach. I know what you're thinking. Oh, UCI barely got by the beach a couple games ago. They did. They went to Long Beach and only won the game by 5 points. I get it. That was part of the little run out of UCI. But the first time they got Hawaii, the Anteaters beat them by 16 points. And I get it. It's a completely different game when you go to Hawaii to when Hawaii comes to the continental United States. I get it. But the Rainbow Warriors have just been so mid. They're 6-8 in the conference, but they're a bad 6-8 because at one point in time, this team was, 4-3 in the conference? Since that win against Cal State Bakersfield, where unfortunately we had the Roadrunners, they lose on the road at UC Davis. They lose on the road to UCI. They host UC San Diego. They lose. They beat Cal State Fullerton. Who cares? They're horrible. They lose to Cal Poly. They lose to UCSB, and they barely get by Long Beach State, where I kid you not, their leading scorer was Ryan Rapp, who scored 10 points. Hawaii, they're such a low-scoring team, man. I think, again, if anyone was in that spot against them, other than potentially Fullerton, they win in that game that they played against Long Beach. It was just such an unimpressive victory. Hawaii, they're not a good scoring squad. Tanner Christensen's their best guy. He's their center, who, again, will give you 11 points and 7 boards a night. But, I don't know, the Rainbow Warriors are not impressive. Again, they are a team that at times will, I'm not going to say rely on Christensen, but Christensen, again, if they're going to win games, it's going to be big nights out of Christensen. The thing is, he's matched up against likely the player of the year this year in the Big West, and that's Bent Lupton. No, he's going to get over Burton Harkis, right? And then, of course, oh, God, I'm blanking on UCSD's guy. But, I think Lupton should still get it, right? Over Tate Jones. That's who was missing out of UC San Diego. It's either Tate Jones or Ben Lupton, who's your player of the year in the Big West. But that's the thing. Tanner Christensen's not going to be able to take over the game at all with Ben Lupton in there. Lupton is by far the best player on UCI, but they've got shooters. Again, you get Devin Tosa with the game winner. We like Miles Che, Justin Hahn. It's a good team, man. It is. And they are a great defensive team. They match up so well with Hawaii. Hawaii will not be able to score points in them. Again, we saw UC Irvine this season shut a team down to 39, I believe it was Northern Iowa. Legitimately, there's a chance Hawaii doesn't get out the 40s. They don't. I think this game, seriously, final score, I don't think UCI is going to have the best shooting night because they haven't recently. I legitimately expect the final score of this game to be about 63 to 48. Legitimately, that's where I think the final score will be, maybe even lower for Hawaii. But I think that's how the Anteaters get this one. I think it's a low-scoring affair. I think Irvine outplays them on that side of the ball. And I think, again, that matchup between Lupton and Christensen, I think Bent Lupton wins it easily. And again, we just need to rely on, again, Lupton's ability to score. But again, Tillis, Che, Hahn, I think we're going to be all right here with the Anteaters. Give me UC Irvine to go on the road to Honolulu and cover the spread here against Hawaii in the late night cap. Give me UC Irvine at -6.5 here in Honolulu against the Rainbow Warriors. So, folks, thank y'all for watching our 10 best bets for college basketball here on February 15th. If you have not yet, though, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video, and make sure to comment if you do disagree with any of the picks. We'll be back tomorrow for more best bets on the channel as well. Folks, thank y'all for watching, and Mamba forever.